If you Google the category of the book, it tells you it's misery lit.
Misery lit.
Misery lit. And I just thought that's just so not what it is.
It's not.
Welcome to another Newsweek Conversations. This is a special one. I'm just going to take a moment before we start and before I introduce everyone to dedicate this show to my brother, who is sober today and living every day, one day as it comes. Congratulations, Nick, for keeping it real. So we are here today with Aaron and Sam Taylor-Johnson. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Aaron is famous for being a superhero, among other things. Kick-Ass, my favorite Marvel movie. Quicksilver, but then my favorite hero, John Lennon.
Oh, yeah.
Just sort of, you've got to call him a superhero.
You do.
Indeed.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Sam, famous for doing movies big and small and being an artist beforehand. So you did 50 Shades of Grey.
Big.
And you did Nowhere Boy.
Small.
Which was small.
Yeah.
Which is actually, and you did, that was your first collaboration.
That's right. Yeah, a decade ago now.
So, Sam, I'm going to start by asking you some questions. So,
please.
You did not start life as a filmmaker.
I did not. I started life as an artist, graduated art school, Goldsmiths, and then went on to be a photography artist, photos and installations and sort of little short films, and just slowly evolved into becoming a filmmaker.
I found this great quote from you. You said, "I wanted to become an artist because it meant endless possibilities. Art has a way of reinventing myself. Art was a way of reinventing myself."
Yeah.
Still true today?
Still true today. And I like to think I reinvent myself daily.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I've seen some of the photographs and some of the work and some of the exhibitions. They're fantastic. And
Thank you.
were part of the young British artist movement back in the day. Talk to us a little bit about that journey of, taking, how you moved from photography into the first motion picture.
It was because as an artist, I was on a film jury and met the filmmaker Anthony Minghella, and he said, you'd make a very interesting filmmaker, because I was very opinionated about movies, because that was my passion. I loved watching movies. And he sparked an idea that was dormant but there. And then later on, and I didn't know him, he reached out and said, "I'd like to produce a short film with you in order to then go on and make a feature, if you're interested." So it was kind of like finding the golden ticket in the chocolate bar.
How do you say no to that?
You don't. And that was an amazing, amazing mentor to have. Yeah.
Right. But then you went from making a pretty small film about, John Lennon's not a small character, but it was still a pretty small budget film, to making a huge film, 50 Shades of Grey. Massive film.
Yeah.
What made you want to go from one to the other like that?
I think because, like you said in the first quote, I like to reinvent, and I do love a challenge, and that seemed like a challenge that I was ready for.
Right. And
then I embarked on a long journey that was definitely challenging. But hindsight's a wonderful thing in many respects, and I do see the lessons that I learned along that way. And some lessons I didn't want to learn, but those lessons taught me things that then enabled me to shoot a movie like A Million Little Pieces in 20 days, and with confidence, having come off of something where it had a bigger budget and a little more time to then be able to move fast on something small. Right. But I love making movies because I love the collaboration.
Right. Well, we look forward to seeing a lot more. So, Aaron, I saw that after high school you studied acrobatics as one of the things. At least that's what it says on the internet, and everything you read on.
It's very new to me. It's true, apparently. Yeah.
Is that true? Not true?
I mean, I was a gymnast at an early age, and I really loved that. So I did do that for a good 10, 15 years of my childhood, and I had the opportunity. The first film I got was when I was 10, and I had an opportunity to jump into film, and I thought that was sort of the only one, it might never happen again sort of moment. So I decided to do something like that, and and kicked out the squad, so never got back in.
Oh, is that right? You
Yeah.
were doing it until you were 10 or 11, then you were kicked out of the squad for being a...
Yeah.
Actually, it's worked out for you.
Yes, but it's
Just
funny
gonna say.
because when you're a kid, that's kind of what you believe you're going to be, I suppose. So,
But it seemed to me that some of the things I've seen you do, whether it's the REM video or some of the action hero stuff, or in this movie you've just done, there are some sequences that seem to pull from some of your acrobatic, gymnastic troupe.
yeah, there's a lot of physicality in this movie, and Sam and I've sort of collaborated on things in between, which have a lot of body movement and contemporary dance in it. And I feel it was a decision kind of early on that Sam wanted to portray James, this character, in a sort of more expressive, physical way, and how we can bring that sort of element of dance through the narrative of this story. So it was really interesting tape, because obviously when you spend time with James Fry, he doesn't dance or move like in that way. So it was definitely an interpretation, and it allowed us to sort of play to our sort of strengths at times. So it was exciting. It's good to kind of, that was interesting, with a book like this and having an adaptation to kind of portray in our own kind of voice, So
One of the other things that I read about you before we go deeper into there is that you try to do one project a year, and that sort of one of you takes turns. You do a project Aaron, then you do a project Sam, and now you've just sort of found enough time to, with the kids being a little older, to do one together.
Yeah.
You're going to do that now? Is that the new norm, where you'll both do one project together? Or
love to. I mean, I think that's the idea, is to kind of continue to collaborate and find more material and stories, not necessarily ones that we have to write on, but for the last 9 years, we've been one on, one off, and so that we've been available as parents for our kids and support one another in our work. And it's important to keep supporting each other's ambitions.
Any of those decisions ever come down to an arm wrestle? No, you both got it.
Weirdly, it's one of those things that we've been pretty lucky to kind of, it's slid one into the other quite nicely. It's sort of really, I feel like it goes by first come, first serve sort of situation, but it really sort of dictates. You kind of get a rhythm for it. When a job comes up and there's a lot of movement around it, there's a lot of energy towards it. Same for Sam, which takes a lot more. It takes a lot more time and involvement and energy towards trying to get a film off the ground when you're a director, and then obviously it continues to be a bigger part of your life. It's like a good 2 years, you know, whereas I could be in for 3 months and I'm out.
Yeah.
But you kind of get a rhythm for it, and you know when those are going to go, and then you say that, I don't want to, do me a favor, don't tell me what's coming through the doors, No, I think, you kind of, you know where you can fit in, and ultimately, I just find there's just not much material that's interesting enough, and I like to dive into a character, and then I need that time to kind of shed that character and then feel present at home, and then get that kind of creative itch again. So that time off is actually kind of a good process for me as an actor.
Yep, sounds good. So let's talk about the book. The film opens with the quote, "I've lived through some terrible things in my life, some of which actually happened," which I assume is a nod to this activity, right?
Yeah.
Did the controversy around the book affect you at all, or you just, because I think I know that you enjoyed the book before it ever was controversial. So
I did. I've been on the journey of the book since it came out, I think 2005, and I read it and loved it, and went on the journey with James. I continued on the journey with James through what happened with the book and the controversy and public shaming and humiliation.
When did you first meet him? You met him?
I met him somewhere in the art world. He has a better memory of it than I do.
Oh, that's right. He's big in the art world as well. He's
and I met him in the art world,
yeah.
and he collects art, and then I I reached out when I heard that the rights to the book had gone back to him, because when I read it, I thought this is so filmic, and it's such a strong story in the way that he's written the characters and the way he's written about his journey just left an imprint on me that stayed for a long time. And I felt like, as I read about other directors and studios coming in to the mix to make this, I always had a little tinge of envy and thinking what great material they had.
Right.
And then when it came to us, I never felt like the controversy should be part of the movie.
Yep.
It was there for people to look at and have their opinion on. But for me, it was about the book and the book only.
And do you think that, I know he gave you enormous freedom.
He did, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you think that was partly due to the controversy and he just wanted to distance himself from it, or?
I feel that it was just because it had been in the hands of studios. It kind of danced around for about 15 years, and filmmakers attached themselves to it and then wrote new drafts and then couldn't quite get it made, and then it sort of fell at the wayside. And it was almost like there wasn't quite, I think the controversy probably blocked them a lot more than on how to get around it or play with it, or felt too attached to it. But I think, well, he said it, he put it best himself. He kind of handed us the keys and said, I wrote this in the spirit of art, go make art.
That never happens.
That never happens.
Never
he said,
happens.
look,
I've
I
never
know,
heard of anything like
well,
that.
because he said, he goes, Sam, I know you've had a tough time with an author in the past, and I won't be that author, so I will leave you to your own devices, and that if you want to get in touch with me, you can always call me and I'll be there, and I will leave you alone if you need to. And he stuck true to his word. I mean, he was very approachable. I spent a lot of time with him, on and off, texting. We went on a little road trip here and there, and to get to know one another. Went back to the treatment centre.
Had that changed much since he was there?
No, there's a new buildings, part of the donations for new wings and stuff, but a lot of it is pretty much exactly how it was back then in '93, and so it was really overwhelming for him to step through those doors again. He said he hadn't been back in over 20 years. So I guess the rawness of it was he was an addict, and now today he's 26 years sober and battles with it every day.
Incredible.
It's phenomenal, and also he's been through probably a rougher journey on this side of things, and he's been able to, he battles with it every day, as every addict will, empathise with. But yeah, walking through those doors, I guess I was quite selfish and naive to think actually it was really from my benefit, in a sense of co-writing and really getting a sense of it as an actor, trying to get more informed with the character. But I didn't realise how overwhelming and emotional it would be for him to relive those steps. And we went through we had a very close bonding time whilst doing that, and and a lot of it was very similar to how it was,
As you heard from my introduction, I certainly have someone in my life who's has to deal with sobriety every day. Is there a particular person or someone or something that was in either of your lives that made you want to do this film?
Yeah, there was, and no longer with us, sadly. So, and a good friend of both of ours, and I think that subconsciously it was a driving force in making this, to know that we were making a movie that was portraying addiction, but in a very real way. And we made this on a very small budget in 20 days. So and with that comes an authenticity in a way, because we were very hands-on, and I think that making something in this world that ultimately showed hope was really the most valuable thing to both of us in making this, and something where, yes, you're watching a movie about somebody going on a very dark journey, but it undulates. There's darkness and light, and there's humor, but ultimately the hope was the most important thing, and to be able to show that there's a community of support, really.
So I agree with you about that hope, and Aaron, one of the things that struck me was that the James Frey character was like a superhero, because the truth is that most people aren't as strong as him, and they don't have as good. I mean, most of his classmates didn't survive. You were talking about someone we can't talk about because we can get too emotional. I have my brother. Did the fact that you've played superheroes in the past and now you're playing him, was there any crossover in there in your mind? Because there seemed to be for me.
Well, I think he's a heroic character in a sense of, many people who have read his book, and why his book is such a bestseller is because he was really one of the first of his kind to articulate that internal struggle and that day-to-day fury and pain, and also sort of fearlessly show his vulnerable side and all of its ugliness, and is its beauty. It sort of was very refreshing to read something like that, and he's it wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's not an easy character by any means. It's complex, and that's the beauty of it. Also, not necessarily likable. This character is someone that you might not like them, but you want to root for them. You have empathy for them. You want to get behind them, and you want them to triumph, because we all personally, either we've been through it, or we know someone who's very close to us who's struggling with it, or been through it, or celebrating sobriety. So you can see the everyday struggle and the destruction and how hard to overcome those obstacles it is. So
if you Google the category of the book, it tells you it's misery lit.
Misery lit.
Misery lit. And I just thought that's just so not what it is.
It's not.
I've never
It's
seen.
just such a hero's tale.
It
Yeah.
is.
Because he helps everyone.
And you
all the
laugh
way
and you
through it.
cry.
Yeah.
and
Well,
you
he
laugh
writes in
again.
rhythms. He writes dark and light, and
Yeah.
sadness to humor, and he writes in rhythms like that. But yeah, like Sam said, what she tapped into really early on was actually there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope. There's constant hope in the darkest of times, and so yeah, it's anything but, I'd say.
What advice would you give someone who is an addict? What advice would you give someone whose friend is an addict? And if you want to make it more meta, we have an opioid crisis here in the United States. And how do you think this person's story of recovery informs that issue?
It's such an enormous crisis
Yeah.
that touches so many people's lives, and no one is beyond help. And I think that's the most important thing, and that the support is there. There are well-founded structures, there are people, that you're not alone, and that there can be hope in the beacon of others who've been through it and are there to help you go through it, and to come through the other side. And you may relapse, but there's still the same safety net of people to help you will be there. And that's, I think, comforting to know that there is always someone who will help you. And if you can find it, it's not far out of anyone's reach, I don't think.
Yeah. So in a world which is just dominated by streaming services like Netflix and big movies, which you've both been part of,
Yeah.
you've decided to release this film as an independent picture with a staggered release date. What sort of made you decide to do that? And
What was our decision to do that? No,
Yeah, completely.
what was the decision to do that?
No, I think it's definitely a hard thing it's a very rare thing to try and keep that sense of that sort of cinematic kind of theatrical release in today's society. I think it is becoming more and more hard to get an independent film off the ground and have something. It is a sort of a rarity. I think it's a film that was made for intended to be watched in the cinema. I think that medium should constantly be celebrated that way.
I think I think the decision really was to kind of build the momentum with it, because like Aaron said, it's a small movie. It's very hard to get theatrical release. It's hard to get movies into theaters, and if you're not a studio movie that doesn't have big distributors it's even more difficult. And a movie with this subject matter about a controversial book, there's a lot weighted against it, and it's a small movie. But it's a small movie with a big heart and a big message. So Aaron and I feel like we've been sort of single-handedly pushing this into the world, and it's taken time. And but Friday it's out, and my God, I'm going to just let go when it comes out then, because for the last two and a bit years we've been living with it, and it's and it's been powerful subject matter to be dealing with, and we're excited for it to be in the world, because it's a movie, and it's not misery.
It isn't misery.
It's not misery. It's actually, we have Billy Bob Thornton, who brings a lot of humor to it, and we have Charlie Hunnam, who brings a lot of soul to it, and we have Juliette Lewis and Giovanni Ribisi and Odessa Young. It's an amazing cast who came on and did this for pretty much nothing, just for the importance of the subject matter and the love of the story.
Well, if you want to see a movie this holiday season that is heroic and uplifting about a subject that touches someone that you know, you should see A Million Little Pieces.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.